This is one of the prettiest jail cells in the whole state of California. It overlooks beautiful downtown Cucamonga, and if I keep the window tightly closed, the smog can't get in. I suppose you're wondering how I got here, so I'll tell you my story. They say crime doesn't pay. Well, it would have. I planned the greatest, slickest, trickiest $2 million jewel robbery ever, and I would have gotten away with it had it not been for the Boatniks of Newport Beach Harbor, the most accident-prone Coast Guard ensign ever born, his kooky girlfriend, her pelican, and last but not least, my 2 assistants, whose expertise in crime was something less than great. Well, I should say good. Well, what I really should say is that they were the worst. They say that man has always been lured by the sea. Well, for the life of me, I don't know why. It's wet, it's salty, it's full of sharks, it's surrounded by sand that gets in your sandwiches. But there must be something to this lure, Bing. Now, for example, take Newport Harbor. Something has lured to Newport the largest collection of nuts and boatniks in the whole world. They set out upon the water in the craziest collection of craft known to man. Everything from canoes to catamarans, barges, brigs, sloops, skiffs, dinghies, to donuts, you know, the rubber kind, and whatever will float, and some things that won't. Now, there are sinkings every day, and it's the job of the Coast Guard to rescue these boatniks from themselves. Responsibility for keeping order in this massive marine traffic jam is given specifically to the Coast Guard cutter Point Maley. Don't ask me why they call these boats cutters, except the Point Maley, under the command of Ensign Tom Garland, probably cut more boats in half than she rescued. But that's where our story starts. And Ensign Tom Garland is very much mixed up in the story, as you will see. Perhaps I'd better explain a little about him. He is not merely accident-prone. He is disaster-prone. Everything happens to him because he was born clumsy. And he's unlucky as well. Well, he was very late in reporting to take over command of the Point Maley, and thus it is very understandable that he was driving his car a little faster than usual, swerving in and out of traffic on a busy coast road. That's where I bumped into him. Or I should say, that's where he bumped into the car that Charlie and Max and I were using to get away to Mexico with $2 million worth of jewels in the trunk. That's where he hit us, right in the trunk. Worst of all, just then, the traffic cop who had been tailing him for miles caught up with him.
You had to crash into these nice gentlemen's nice car in order to put an end to the longest string of moving traffic violations I have ever seen. Speeding, swerving, following too closely, failing to make a boulevard stop, and now this.
It was nothing, officer. I am sure the engine's mind was on our country's defenses. No harm done.
It's going to take me a long time to write this ticket.
Just take your time, officer. No need to detain us. We'll just be off.
I wish you'd let me pay for the damage.
Keep the money, lad. You'll need it. I know how you sailors are. Just as we got back into our car, the radio on the officer's motorcycle began blaring, and believe me, it stopped us in our tracks.
This is an all-points bulletin from the State Highway Patrol. Be on the lookout for 3 men in a white sedan. Make undetermined. These men are suspects in a $2 million Los Angeles jewel robbery. They are believed to be heading for the Mexican border. All units from Orange County to San Diego County are ordered to establish roadblocks. More later.
The cop was so busy writing up Tom's ticket that he really didn't listen. And that's probably what saved us. I just said softly and suavely to Max, "Drive on, Max, drive on." And then, as we pulled away, I said, "Make for the Pirates' Rest Motel." Now, there we rented some cozy quarters and held a council of war.
We can't go to Mexico by road, Harry. The cops are everywhere.
And we can't go by air either. They're watching every airport like hawks.
I know, I'm thinking. All right. Now, hear this, shipmates. We are going to sail to Mexico, and we're going to take along a picnic lunch in a wicker hamper. We'll just stuff all the jewels into dill pickles, roasted chickens, and salami.
It's a crazy idea to try to sail in Mexico, Harry.
But that's what we're going to do. And from now on, I am Commodore Simmons, a member of a very exclusive Eastern Yacht Club. Champion blue water sailor. Oh, yeah, where'd I put that book on sailing for beginners?
But why a sailboat, Harry? Why not a motorboat?
Oh, much too obvious, Max. That's what they'd expect. Now, what could be more innocent than three gentlemen of leisure cruising to Acapulco?
But you never sailed before.
There's no problem as long as we take this book on sailing for beginners.
But that book won't get us past the breakwater.
You realize, of course, I could charge you both with mutiny.
In a motel room?
Meanwhile, back at the Coast Guard base, Ensign Garland was having his usual rash of troubles. In the first place, he couldn't find it. Then it was pointed out to him at the end of the dock. As he made his way gingerly along the crowded dock, duffel bag over his shoulder, he managed to run into a family of 7, almost knocking down several of the children into the water. Then he got tangled up in a leash of a well-groomed poodle, and in a man with an oar almost knocked him into the drink. But finally, and worst of all, he knocked over a can of paint on the prettiest girl in Newport Harbor, Kate Fairchild, owner of Lido Boat Rentals. Well, Kate, dripping with yellow paint from head to toe, was almost speechless, but not quite. No amount of apologies on Tom's part seemed to help. Finally and helplessly, Tom went on and found Coast Guard headquarters and reported to Commander Taylor.
Ensign Tom Garland reporting for duty, sir.
Glad to have you with us, Garland.
Thank you, sir.
I served with your father, Garland.
Oh, really, sir?
Yes, indeed. If you're half the man Torpedo Tommy was, we're proud to have you with us.
Thank you, sir.
I'll show you around the Port Melee. We'll start at the stern.
What are all those boats doing out in that bay? There must be millions of them.
Oh, yes. There are more small boats in Newport Harbor than in any other harbor in the country. And what are they doing? They're enjoying themselves. It's our job to shepherd them, Garland. Yes, sir. We're the shepherd, and they are the sheep.
Tom was dumbfounded at the fantastic traffic jam of boats in that harbor. They all appeared to be smashing into one another. Suddenly, a large ferry boat appeared, going against the traffic. Tom gasped as it just missed crashing into boat after boat. As he walked backward, observing this fantastic sight, he managed to fall over the rail into the water.
Mr. Garland, there is no swimming allowed around the Coast Guard dock.
That's okay, sir. I can't swim.
That evening, I purchased a natty Commodore's outfit for myself, and the boys bought a huge picnic lunch and a large wicker hamper. We spent half the night stuffing jewels into pickles and salamis and chickens and making bracelet sandwiches and diamond ring stuffed eggs. Well, the next morning, bright and early, we were off to the Lido boat rental dock and beautiful Kate. Ahoy there, Skipper!
What can I do for you?
We're going on a picnic and...
See? This is the picnic hamper.
I'd like to rent a sailboat as something suitable for a bit of a voyage. Say as far as Catalina?
Catalina? I thought you said we were going to Mexico.
Ow! Shut up, you idiot.
I have this 28-foot catch. How would that be?
Oh, my father, the old sea dog, once told me as I was standing on the deck of his brigantine, son, he said, if you're going to rent a boat, always be sure it's a catch.
Have you got anything smaller? I haven't done much sailing.
Billswat, the man's a regular Jack Tar. It's a thrill to see him standing on the fantail with a sturdy hand on the spinnaker.
That's a neat trick. The fantail's in the stern and the spinnaker is forward.
Did you hear that? Is she quick?
I've got a sailing lesson to give. Can you put the sails up on the catch?
Could Magellan sail around the world?
Thanks. I'll see you later. Have a nice day.
All right, you swabbies. Start putting up the sails.
That's your job, Magellan.
If I'd have had two able-bodied seamen instead of Max and Charlie, I'm sure everything would have gone okay. But they untied all the wrong ropes and put up all the wrong sails, and finally, all the sails fell down on top of us. As captain, I was at the tiller, of course, and I couldn't see to steer. The closest we got to Mexico was when we crashed into a dock with a Mexican restaurant topside. But we weren't the only ones having trouble. Ensign Garland was finding his first day with a point melee, a disaster. In order to rescue a man and his wife in a small outboard who had run aground on some rocks, Tom and two of his men took the small launch from the cutter and promptly ran aground themselves. Luckily, Kate happened by with a sailboat and her two students.
Oh, look, it's that new ensign from the Coast Guard. He's run aground. What a shame. Need any help?
No thanks. This is a drill.
What kind of a drill?
Running aground on a rock drill.
How about getting off the rock drill?
We'll wait for the tide.
That'll be about 4 hours from now. Throw me a line and we'll give you a tow.
Don't bother.
I insist. We can't leave Newport Harbor unprotected by the Coast Guard for 4 hours.
Okay.
Then followed the first of a series of confrontations between our unfortunate ensign friend and his commanding officer.
Rescued by a girl in a sailboat. What kind of an image is that for the Coast Guard?
Well, sir.
I'll tell you what kind of an image it is. It's a lousy image. This is the toughest assignment on the West Coast. Newport is a seagoing freeway.
Well, sir.
With all the rescuing we have to do here, the one rescue we don't need is rescuing the rescue boat.
Yes, sir.
My advice to you, Mr. Garland, is to shape up.
Shape up, yes, sir.
Why, if your father had handled a boat in World War II like you do, we'd all be speaking Japanese.
That evening, Tom bumped into Kate as they waited to be seated at separate tables in the Lobster Pot restaurant.
Tripped a waiter yet? Or are you just knocking over drinks?
No, but the evening's still young. By the way, I'd like to thank you for coming to my rescue this afternoon, Miss Fairchild.
It was nothing.
You're too modest. My commanding officer was very impressed.
I was only doing my duty. Law of the sea, you know.
Does the law of the sea say you're supposed to wipe out an entire career?
Let's not get uptight, Mr. Garland. Remember me, Sadie, the painted lady?
That was an accident. I apologized. I was just trying to be helpful.
In the future, Mr. Garland, stop helping me.
And I would appreciate the same from you, Miss Fairchild.
Okay, we'll make a deal. You stay out of my life, and I'll stay out of your career.
I wish I could tell you that those two young people had parted enemies and stayed that way. But that's not what happened. They were seated together after all and began talking, and one thing led to another. By the time dinner was over, it was a full-blown romance. They got their two heads together later, and that's what led us to this jail cell. But that's kind of getting ahead of my story. Now, the next morning, we rented the ketch again, stowed our precious picnic lunch on board, got all the sails upright, and sailed off toward where I thought Mexico might be. Here we are, shipmates, the open sea.
I thought we were never going to get out of that lousy harbor.
You gotta learn to trust this old sea dog.
But there's so much water.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you're only looking at the top of it.
Harry, how do we get to Mexico?
We just follow the coastline.
Harry, do you really know where we're going?
Of course. Now be quiet and let me concentrate on my navigation. You think Columbus would have discovered America if all the time it had been nag, nag, nag? When we set off, the sun had been bright and the sky clear. But these were treacherous waters. And suddenly we ran into a thick blanket of the dampest, dankest fog ever seen.
What does the book say about fog, Harry?
I can't see to read it. But I know there's a whole chapter on insubordination.
Maybe we ought to just stop here until the fog lifts.
This fog is just what we needed. It's perfect cover.
But You can't follow a coastline you can't see.
No problem. I'll just keep an even keel and a steady hand on the tiller.
And this time we wind up at a Chinese restaurant.
Did you hear that?
Hear what?
Sounds like the foghorn of a boat.
Maybe they can help us. Ahoy there! Ahoy! S-O-S! S-O-S!
Will you shut up, Charlie? If there's one thing we don't want, it's help.
I hear a motor. It sounds like it's coming closer. Change course, Harry.
I'm changing.
It's coming still closer. I wish I were somewhere else.
Change course again, Harry!
I just did. Look out!
We're sinking!
Get the life jackets!
Ahoy there! Are you all right?
You smashed our boat! Send for the Coast Guard!
We are the Coast Guard.
It was our good friend Ensign Garland. Not only did he sink our boat, but in the melee, the picnic basket went overboard. Thinking quickly, as always, I sent out a small buoy to mark the spot. Then we clambered aboard the Point Melee and headed for the Coast Guard dock, where Ensign Garland had another session with his commanding officer.
Ensign Garland, you're a menace to boating. I know that sinking ships is a tradition in your family, but it should be theirs, not ours.
It may be no excuse, sir, but they failed to state their position, and it was very foggy.
The weather was beautiful when you ran that boat up on the rocks.
That's true, sir.
I'm warning you. Father or no father, Ensign Garland, if you goof up just one more time, not only will you lose command of the Point Melee, but I will write a fitness report that wouldn't qualify you to command a kayak.
Dauntless. That's what I am. Determined and dauntless. The next day, we rented an outboard from Kate, and well prepared with lines and grappling hooks, we proceeded to the marker buoy. As cover, I had Charlie fish, while Max and I groped and grappled. The first thing we brought up was a waterlogged guitar, then an old boot, a tire, and a kid's phony old treasure chest with nothing inside. We finally gave up, and I told Charlie to reel in. But just then he got a bite, and I tell you, it was a whopper. All Charlie had done was hook one of the biggest sea bass ever caught in the Newport area. The fish was so big that it had towed our boat right back into the harbor. We finally got the fish landed, and Tom Garland insisted that we all have our pictures taken with the huge fish. Of course, I didn't much like that idea, and the three of us did what we could to look somewhere else. Unfortunately for me, that Kate Fairchild has brains, and she began to suspect something fishy.
There are pictures in the paper.
I wish everybody would stop making such a big deal over this. Oh, my picture's here with a fisherman.
Notice anything strange about the picture?
Well, it's not very good of me.
No, not that. Don't you think it's strange that you're the only one we can see in this picture? Tom, I don't think those men wanted their picture taken. This one has his hat over his face, and that one has turned his head completely, and the third one is bending over so you can't see his face.
You're imagining things, Kate.
They said they were sailors, too, and look what they did to my boat. I think they bear watching.
Undaunted by all this adversity, I rented a diving suit, and the next morning we rented still another boat from Kate and went out to where the marker buoy bobbed on the waves. I chose Charlie to make the dive. He didn't like it very much, but down he went. And the only problem was that he didn't find the basket. The sharks found it first. Our ever-present ensign came in handy this time. The Point Melee had been lurking in the background, apparently watching our diving operations. I didn't like that. But when Charlie yelled, "Shark!" the cutter came closer, and Ensign Garland dispatched the shark with one well-placed shot. I was beginning to lose my cool. It was obvious that Tom and Kate were getting suspicious. But on the other hand, we couldn't walk away from $2 million worth of jewels. I then had an inspiration. I called a good friend of mine in Tokyo, Japan, and asked him to send over immediately one of them expert Japanese pearl divers. A day or two later, we met the plane, and who should walk off but a beautiful Japanese girl. Pinned to her kimono was a note. To Mr. Harry Simmons, my name is Chiyoko Kuni. I am pearl diver sent by Honorable Masamori Tanahara. Very honored to make your honorable acquaintance. I tell you, Chiyoko was a real beauty. And she proved to be a very good picnic basket diver as well. After one or two practice dives, she recovered the basket and the jewels. The only hang-up was that Ensign Garland and the Point Maley were watching us from a distance. That night, at the motel, I tried to give Chiyoko a bonus. I just found the Japanese word for bonus.
Bonus?
Yeah, I think we ought to give Chiyoko one.
She deserves it.
How much do you figure, Harry?
Well, if we give her $100, she'll be bound to boot her for a year. Chiyoko, give you a bonus, okay, sweetheart? $100?
You're a little short, Harry.
Where did you learn to speak English?
I watched a lot of television last night.
The old inscrutable East bit, eh? How much you want?
Oh, 25,000 should do it.
Are you out of your mind?
Max, we're in no position to argue. Okay, Madam Butterfly, you win. As soon as we negotiate with a fence, you get your dough.
Old Japanese saying, a girl who not take friend money often wind up with an egg full young on her face. I'll just take this diamond necklace and this string of pearls. I especially like pearls. And this emerald ring. That should take care of me nicely. Sayonara, baby.
Now that we had the jewels, the problem was how to get out of Newport. I knew I had to think of something different. But if I do say it myself, I am very inventive, ingenious, and I did come up with a new plan.
Why Trans-Mexican Airlines, Harry? Why? Huh? I gotta know right now.
Well, you relax, Max. I told you I have a new plan. Hello? Trans-Mexican?
Hello, sí. This is Trans-Mexican Airlines. Pepe Caindo, el presidente, is speaking.
You charter planes?
Sí, we are in the charter business, but you caught us at a very bad time. We have 2 planes on lease to the Honduras Air Force, 2 on lease to El Salvador. We have only 1 old seaplane remaining.
A seaplane? That's perfect. Newport, yeah, that's right. Could you be up here by 2 this afternoon?
Sí, senor.
Great. Land at 3 miles offshore, due west. We'll be out to meet you in a fishing boat.
Sí, Commodore. 2 o'clock. Adios.
But our troubles weren't over yet. When we went down to Kate's to rent a boat to get out to the seaplane, we were met by a delegation consisting of Commander Taylor, Ensign Garland, Kate, and last but not least, her miserable pet pelican, Moby Dick. He promptly attacked me. Get lost before you wind up as a pelican stew, will you? Good morning, Miss Fairchild. Is our boat ready?
Commodore, I'd like you to meet Commander Taylor, commanding officer of the Coast Guard Station.
If I may say so, sir, you are doing a grand job. Kate, get that pelican away from our picnic lunch.
Moby, cut it out. He just smells the food. What are you having for lunch, could we see?
Oh, no, you wouldn't be interested. Just a few little leftovers I put together.
Today is invited guest on board week with the Coast Guard. We could pull our lunches and everything.
Yeah, I think you're very kind, but we had planned to go fishing. We cut it out, Bird. Between the bird's attacks and Tom's friendly attempts to help me, the picnic basket got spilled, and there was our precious lunch all over the dock.
I'm afraid we've clumsily spilled the contents of your basket, Commodore. The Coast Guard would be pleased to buy you another lunch.
Yeah, no harm done. No, sir, these chickens are indestructible, to say nothing of the salami. Back, you savage bird!
You've botched it again, Garland. Jewels in the hamper, indeed. I suggest that you return to your quarters and consider yourself relieved of command.
Yes, sir.
Get on board, men, and we'll be off.
The Pelican's got a pickle, Harry.
Come back, you crook!
Forget the pickle. Let's get out of here. And so we did. But Kate pulled the pickle away from the Pelican and found a diamond ring inside. We had a couple of 100 yards head start before Tom got a little motorboat and set out in pursuit. We tried to lose him in the traffic and finally came alongside a big yacht where a party was in progress. Tied up alongside was a little yellow submarine. Into the submarine, quick!
The submarine?
Get in!
Well, Harry, I don't want to go underwater again.
Will you shut up and get inside?
Harry, we don't know how to run a sub. We'll all get killed. What?
Oh, sorry, it's hard to speak English in a U-boat. Now, let's get this thing going, huh?
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out how. There she goes!
All right, head for the channel.
Yeah, how do I know where that is?
Well, I'll just put up this old periscope here. Aha! Perfect. Steady as she goes, men. And we've got trouble to our rear. Oh, you won't believe this, but the ensign is after us in a canoe full of Sea Scouts.
I can't make this thing go any faster, Harry.
Prepare to dive!
Underwater?
Down, periscope, dive! Meanwhile, the Point Melee, with the commander on board, caught up with Tom and his boatload of Sea Scouts. So it was another confrontation for poor Tom.
You're chasing a gang of jewel thieves escaping in a U-boat with a canoe rowed by Sea Scouts. This is preposterous. Come aboard. We're going back to the base.
Please, sir, I know I'm right. Please give me permission to follow them and use sonar.
All right. You have one more chance, Ensign. It's your last. You'd better be right this time.
Thank you, sir. Full speed ahead.
On board the lucky little sub, I was jubilant. We're home free! Hold your course, Max. Due west!
Look, Harry, it's got torpedo tubes and everything.
That's for spear fishing.
How much longer are we gonna stay underwater, Harry?
A few more minutes, and then we surface, rendezvous with a seaplane, and it's off to Mexico.
Hey, what's that? Sounds like something is wrong with our plumbing.
That's sonar, dummy!
What's sonar?
Sonar is an electronic device that enables a Coast Guard to know where we are in our submarine. Of course, you idiot!
What'll they do to us when they find us?
They're not gonna find us.
They're getting closer, Harry.
Harry, what are we gonna do?
Cut the engines, Max. Now, everybody quiet.
They picked us up again, Harry.
Start the engine. We've got to make a run for it.
I don't panic.
It's our only chance.
We can't outrun the Coast Guard boat.
What are we going to do?
I am going to do what all good U-boat commanders do. Make them think we're sunk.
Aren't we?
Take the jewels out of the chicken and salami. Max, rise toward the surface without the engines. Charlie, stuff all the food into the torpedo tube.
Torpedo tube?
You heard me.
All set, Harry.
Fire one. Fire two.
What's going on up there?
Shh. I'll put up the periscope. They're leaving. They're leaving. It worked. The old Conrad Veidt trick worked. All right, now, let me turn this periscope around. Aha, yes, there's the seaplane right ahead. All right, full speed ahead, Max. Take her to the surface and open a hatch. Let me have that basket of jewels. I don't trust anybody with it.
Buenos tardes, senores.
Nice to see you, sweetheart. Are we ready to go?
Si, senor. Is this cash or a credit card?
Cash. Let's go.
Welcome aboard Trans-Mexican Airways. I am your hostess, Marta Ramirez. Coffee, tea, or tequila?
Right, let's go.
This is your captain speaking. On this flight, we will be flying at 6,000 feet, more or less.
Will you take off?
Look, the Coast Guard cutter is coming back again.
They must have seen the seaplane. Hurry up, pilot, take off!
We're not even getting off the water, Harry.
We cannot take off. Too much weight. Everybody lighten the load.
Can't we get off the water? Can't we go any faster?
We still have too much weight. Throw something else overboard.
But what? What? There's nothing left.
Just these picnic baskets, senor.
No, not that.
She's thrown all the jewels overboard.
We'll never find him this time, Harry.
Oh, well, at least the plane is up in the air, and we'll be able to escape to Mexico.
Who wants to go to Mexico?
Who wants to go to jail?
Unfortunately, when we reached Mexico, the Mexican authorities were waiting for us, and they extradited us right back to the United States in very quick fashion. Well, since I'd been the ringleader of the group, I took the blame on myself, and thus Max and Charlie got off with relatively light sentences. I still have another 3 years in this pretty little jail cell, but I'll use it well in planning another jewel robbery. $3 million worth this time. Max and Charlie will have no part in my new scheme, and I'll hire some real experts worthy of my ingenious plan. And you can be sure that the scene of my next great crime will be as far inland as is possible to get, away from the water, away from the Coast Guard, and especially away from the pelicans.